Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Money Monday. We'll be getting started in a few minutes. So come on. Grab your pen and your piece of paper and we're going to get started. Tonight, we're talking about emergency preparedness. And I think this is something that we all know we need to talk about, but we just don't discuss it. We don't know what it looks like. So that's what we're going to be talking about tonight in 2 minutes. I have my notes here as always. I want to make sure I don't miss anything. So get your notepad, get your pen, be ready to take some great notes. I'm going to give you an action plan. I'm going to be talking about some things that should be in your kits, in your emergency preparedness kit, what that looks like, and we're going to be covering that tonight. So come on. Hey, Liam Carter, welcome to Money Monday. Who do we have on? Candy, as always. Hi, Candy. Welcome to Money Monday. We'll be getting started. Let's give folks another minute to 2 minutes or so, and then we'll start promptly at 9 o'clock. Okay? All right. If you guys can hear me, give me some hearts so I can make sure that you can hear me. I'm going to test my tech. You know, it works sometimes it doesn't, so we always have to check it. See, thank you. Okay, perfect. We have another minute or so, and then we'll get started. Let me just make sure I have everything I need here. Today is Columbus Day, and I unknowingly wore my Christopher Wallace shirt. That's the only Columbus or Christopher I acknowledge as Wallace. So a lot of things were closed today, and I don't understand why we're still celebrating Columbus Day out of all the things that he has done. But yeah, so I decided to keep my shirt on. Nobody has time for a rapist and a murderer, okay? We're trying to move forward in this new age. So yeah. All right, it's 9 o'clock. Let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so of course, I'm your host, Nikia Carter. If you don't know, welcome to the live Money Monday. I do these every Monday at 9 p.m. We talk about a different topic. Some of them are closely related to money. Some of them are not. These are just things that you can consider, but always great information, great content. Okay, so let's jump right in. With everything that's going on over in Israel and Pakistan, I think it's important now to talk about our emergency preparedness and what we're going to do, right? Emergency preparedness is kind of like insurance. You have it, right? And you know about it, but you never hope that you need it. But in the event that you do need it, you're happy that you were prepared. So that's kind of what you need to do. Now, we're not just talking about war. We're talking about any disaster, right? So it could be an earthquake. It could be a tornado. It could be a flood. It could be a house fire. It could be a medical emergency that you have at your house that maybe you didn't consider, right? That's what we're going to be talking about. So don't just think war. Think of anything unexpected that happens that you were not anticipating, that you don't want to happen. The worst thing that could ever happen to you. We're going to talk about if it happens, okay? Now, there are 3 steps to being prepared when it comes to an emergency. The first step is to make a plan. The second step is to build your kit. And the third step is to be informed. Okay? Thank you for coming to Money Mondays. No, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. I'm going to break it down for you guys. It's a little jokey joke. Okay, so those are the 3 steps, right? The first step is to make a plan. So when we talk about making your plan, what you really have to start looking at is your communication strategy. If you live with other folks, you have to start thinking about if something happens, how am I going to communicate to my immediate and extended family? That's numero uno. That's the number one thing that you should be thinking about. The second thing is your action plan. So where's your meeting place, right? Outside your house, directly outside your house or outside your apartment? Or, is it going to be around the corner from your house? Is it going to be in a central location? Is it going to be 20 minutes? Figure that out now so that if you have an emergency, you could just text your family, hey, this is what's going on. Meet us at such and such, such and such. Meet us at the Starbucks. And everybody knows what's going on. Everybody's on the same page. How are you going to contact people? We rely so much on our cell phones. We don't even know phone numbers anymore. So you really have to have those contact sheets of how you're going to reach out to people, how you're going to be in contact with them, who numbers you need to call, so on and so forth. When you're developing your plan, you want to think about your escape route. You know your house, right? But I remember years ago, one of my coworkers, she had a house fire and they struggled trying to figure out how to get out of their house in this house fire, right? It's in the middle of the night. It's never at like 12 o'clock on a Saturday when nothing's happening. It's always at the worst time. So you have to figure out what your escape route is going to be for you and your family, right? Everybody needs to be on the same page. Consider if you have people with disabilities or special needs in your family, right? If you have someone that has mobility issues, if you have someone that maybe has some cognitive or mental issues or delay or something like that, that's going to be a different situation than folks that don't have those challenges. So think about that when you're putting your plan together. Think about your pet plan. A lot of times when things happen, disasters, wars, anything, a lot of times the pets get left behind. And it's not because we don't love them, but it's because we didn't plan for them, right? So you have to start planning now. How are you going to turn off your utilities? Do you know how to turn off your gas? Do you know how to turn off your electricity that goes to your house? Do you know how to turn off your water, right? If there's a house fire, the last thing that you want to do is have to wait for your utility company to show up before they turn off your gas. And, gas has been spilling out of the house for an hour and a half. So know how to turn off those utilities so that in case something happens, you can be prepared. First aid. What happens if somebody breaks their leg, right? What happens if, somebody gets cut and maybe you can't get to the hospital? What happens in a medical situation where they need help? Do you have a first aid kit in your plan? What is going to be your first aid strategy in your plan as you're moving forward for your emergency preparedness? What is the plan for your children? Children are very complex, and I don't think we give them a lot of credit. And so you really have to figure out what you're going to do with your kids. Are they prepared for the plan? Do they know what's going on? Have you guys talked about it? Have you practiced? All of that needs to be considered when you're coming up with your plan. What is your shelter plan? So if something happens to your shelter, your house, your apartment, your whatever it is, your condo, whatever it is, what is your plan for shelter? Figure that out now before you have to start scrambling to figure it out. And then where are the closest hospitals, the urgent cares? Where can you go and get medical help if you need to, right? We saw this a lot with COVID-19 where they were saying, hey, don't come to the hospital if it's not a life or death situation. And so people had to kind of prepare then. But you want to make sure that you are still prepared now so that in case something happens, we're talking about an emergency, something that you don't think is going to happen. If it happens, you'll know. Okay, so that's step one. Step two is to start preparing your kit. So first, we're going to talk about your disaster kit, and then we're going to talk about your financial kit. Okay, so your disaster kit, you're going to need some non-perishable food items. So things that don't go bad quickly, canned goods, maybe some freeze-dried food, maybe some trail mix, maybe some granola bars, those type of things. You're going to need a way to open those items. So maybe not so much a trail mix, but your can, right? So you need a can opener. You want to make sure that you have something to cook that food in. So maybe a pot, maybe a fork, maybe a bowl, maybe a plate. Not a huge setting for 100 people, right? But something that's going to help you in the case of an emergency. Water. We all need water. You need water to survive. So the rule of thumb is 1 gallon per person per day. So you want to have at least enough water to get you through maybe 2 or 3 days of maybe being without water. Clothing and shoes. A lot of the people who are escaping this war over in Israel, they're saying that they had to leave with no shoes on, right? They were just running for their lives. They don't have clothes. They don't have anything. So throw a pair of sneakers in that bag for you and the kids, maybe a pair of sandals, something that's going to help cover your feet so that in the event that you do have to leave quickly, you can grab your bag and be out the door. You want to include sanitation items, hygiene items. So hand wipes, hand sanitizer, tissue, feminine hygiene, regular hygiene, all of that should be included in your emergency supply kit. Medication and first aid. So if you take in medication regularly, you need to make sure that that is in your kit until you can at least get more, right? And then a first aid kit as well. A charger. If you're using your phone, if you're using your iPad, if you're using your computer, how are you going to keep those devices charged so that they can be ready for you and you can keep that juice up and be connected to the outside world? You might want to include a blanket, a pocket knife, activated charcoal. So activated charcoal is good, especially if you have small kids, because if they ingest something like a poison, you can give them a couple of activated charcoal tablets. And once those tablets release in their stomach, it binds to that poison. So make sure that you have that in there. A fire extinguisher, right? I don't think we think about this a lot, but say you have a grease fire, and what do you do with a grease fire? I know you don't put water on it, but if you have a fire extinguisher, that's going to help you mitigate that damage to your home from that fire. So you can just get it. I think it's like 50 or 60 bucks. Slide it up under your sink, replace it every couple years, and you'll be good to go. Another thing that they say that you should have are batteries for like your flashlight. That's another item. So when's the last time you checked your flashlight batteries? It's probably been a long time. So check those batteries. Make sure that those flashlights are working. Yeah, I know this is not the 1960s, but you don't realize how much you'll need that flashlight until you need a flashlight. You need a radio so that you can stay in tune with what's going on. They're going to be sending out information, emergency alerts, details, and you want to be in tune with those. So get you one of those old school crank radios that you can crank to get that information that you need during the emergency. A coat if you don't know the weather, so you want to make sure that you have a coat on hand. And then you want to think about your pet supply needs. So what does your pet need? If they take medication, maybe they need a couple cans of food or a bag of food. And then if you have child care needs or child needs, so if you have an infant that's on formula, you want to make sure that you at least have a can of formula so that in the event that something happens, you can be ready. And then your spare key, right? Say that there's a fire and you don't have time to grab your keys. It'll be so much easier if you know where your spare key is and you can grab your bag, run out to the garage, pull your car out versus trying to figure out where's your key. So now you're out of a house and you're out of a car because they burned up in a house fire. Okay, so consider adding that to your supply kit. Now, when it comes to your financial supply kit, your money supply kit, what are some things that you need to make sure that you include so that you're ready? The first thing is cash. We rely so much on cards as well. Like we're just moving forward in the future. But if ATMs are knocked offline, if something happens, you're going to need cash. And you want to consider small bills. A good number to have is about $500. You want to make sure that your emergency credit card is in there, right? With at least a $500 limit. So if something happens, you can be ready. You want to include your ID, your important documents like your passport, your social security card, what paperwork you need, right? So your insurance policies, your birth and marriage certificates, any medical records, any mortgage or car info, tax returns, wills, deeds, all of that. You need to make sure that those are secure in your financial kit so that if you need them, you have them. I'll give you an example. Let's say there's a tornado, God forbid, right? We do have tornadoes, and it picks your house up and sends it to Kansas. It's going to be so much easier for you to bounce back, for you to call who you need to call, for you to do what it is that you need to do if you have your policy number, right? Your phone's dead. You don't know, what medications you need. That's all in your financial supply kit. And it's going to be so much easier to bounce back if you have that handy. And I'll talk about in a couple minutes how to store that information. So give me a second. So that's number 2, is to get those kits ready. Your disaster kit and then your financial kit. And then number 3 is be informed. A few weeks ago, I think that was last week, we had the emergency cell phone notification and people were going crazy on TikTok and stuff. But that's a real thing, right? So how are you going to stay connected with people if something happens? You need to be informed. So how are you going to be contacted? And how are you going to contact other people? Make sure that you have that at top of mind when you're coming up with your emergency prepare kit. Get that radio, that crank radio, so that you can be in tune with those emergency stations. You want to be receiving those alert warnings, right? And I know they come to your phone, but how else can you receive those on your crank radio? If something happens, you want to use apps instead of calling people. So it's going to be easier to put a status on Facebook or put a status on Instagram or TikTok or Snapchat or wherever than constantly calling people. So make sure that you keep that top of mind. Update your voicemail. So a few months ago, however long ago, somebody got lost in the woods, right? And they changed their voicemail. So this is where I am. This is the last thing I see, so on and so forth. So even when their phone died, when people were calling, they were still able to hear their voicemail. Okay, he said that he's at this place. He sees this rock. This is the milestone. This is what he's seeing, so on and so forth. So consider that. And then again, your emergency notifications. So how are you going to be receiving those emergency notifications if your phone goes out, if you don't have access to internet, if you don't have electricity to watch your TV? What is going to be your strategy? So you want to make sure that you stay informed. Okay, that's 1, 2, 3. Very simple, very easy. Let's talk about storage. Ideally, you want to have a fireproof safe. It doesn't have to be anything too elaborate, this high is what that meant. It doesn't have to be something really big. It can be just a little safe that you pick up from Target, you pick up from Walmart, you pick up from Amazon, where you can house those documents. And then you also may want to consider digitalizing those documents. So taking pictures of your credit card. So at least you have the credit card number. Taking pictures of your ID, of those important documents, so that you can email it to yourself and it can stay in your email for 10, 15 years or however long. Okay. Some things that I want you to also consider as you're putting your plan together. This is not something that you have to do right now, right? The sooner the better. So if you want to start piecing together this kit, this supply kit, do that now. Don't wait until it's an emergency and then you're like, oh, I should have put some water aside. No, start prepping now. Test your plan, right? Go over it with your kids. I know you don't think it's going to matter. I know you don't think it probably is going to count. They're probably going to brush you off like they're not listening. But this is something that we need to do to make sure we're prepared, and it's for a good reason. And then this is a perfect time to check your insurance. The last and worst time to figure out that you don't have coverage is when you need it, right? So start looking at your insurances that you have on your car, on your life, on your home, on your apartment, and make sure that they're the right limit that you need. Make sure that it covers everything that you think it should cover. For example, some insurance doesn't cover floods, right? So if your sewer backs up, it's not going to cover that. This is the perfect time to figure out if that's going to be covered or not. Not when your basement has flooded and the water is up to your highest step coming up to your house. Okay? I hope this helped. Don't forget to pray for the folks over in Israel. We're just living in the last days. That's all I can say. People have been saying that for years, but I really feel like we're living in the last days. Pray for those folks. I always hate when, innocent people get hurt. Like, if the criminals and the thugs want to kill each other, by all means, right? Just leave us out of it. Okay? Leave us alone. So make sure you're praying for those folks. Make sure that you're preparing. Stay ready so you don't have to get ready. Okay? Thanks for joining Money Mondays. Don't forget to share this video with somebody that can benefit from these ideas. Maybe you already have your supply kit. Maybe I mentioned something that you hadn't considered. All in all, get your kit together. I love you guys. I'll see you next Monday. Have a good one. Bye-bye.